Welcome to WeAreSC and five things after USC drops a tough one to Utah, 43-42 Utah. This is Erik McKinney, joined by Marc Kulkin and Greg Katz. Guys, our five things, and as always, we'll start with our first thing, and that's the player of the game. Greg, your player of the game from this one.
Well, which team? I mean, we're going to be nice about this, so we'll go with SC. Quarterback Caleb Williams was magnificent. He passed for a ton of yards, triple digits. Threw some great passes. His scrambling was what the nation got to see was the best of Caleb Williams. I thought the only time he made a mistake was he didn't throw the ball away early and took a big sack, but that was inconsequential the whole situation. But I think he did as much as he could. He just ran out of time and really didn't have a good position at the very, very end of the game with enough seconds left.
Yeah, Marc, your player of the game.
Absolutely. It's Caleb Williams. And, I know where Greg was going with this, with the tight end from Utah, but 25 for 42, 381 yards, 5 touchdowns. I wrote about it on Thursday. I said this was going to be a perfect game for Caleb to break out in. Utah's defense is set up for this. And Caleb did everything but win the game. It was just one of those nights where outside forces played a role.
Just say the officials, Marc, and be done with it.
Well,
they can't put you on suspension, so just tell it like it is, dude.
I'm quoting Nick Figueroa.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, for USC, Caleb obviously a phenomenal game, and he gained 97 yards, gave some back on sacks, but was really dynamite. I mean, from the very beginning with his legs too. Covering the whole game and stepping away from just USC. Obviously, it's Dalton Kincaid for the whole game there. The Utah tight end, 15 receptions for 217 yards, 15 receptions on 15 targets. At no point did they throw him the ball, and he didn't make the catch. And he's credited here with the stats that came out after is with 94 yards after the catch, which is that'd be a great game in itself if he just had the 94 yards. That was and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but the way he took over the game, and honestly, the loudest applause of the game from a stadium that was loud for a lot of the game was when it looked like he got hurt late in the fourth quarter on that drive. When he gets up and walks off the field, that stadium erupted. Like if he wasn't a Utah folk hero coming into the game, he absolutely is now. That was quite a performance from him. But yes, from the USC side, Caleb Williams, spectacular. Good to see him on the road kind of bounce back and get things together there. Let's go second thing, play of the game. Greg, back to you. Your play of the game.
All right, I have 2 plays of the game. Very simple. The injuries to Jordan Addison, to Eric Gentry. I thought in the fourth quarter, it really made a difference, especially in that last drive. Watching how Cameron Rising ran the ball in the 2-point conversion and some of the other things, there is no question that he is really, really good. He's like Ted Hendricks good. For those that remember Ted Hendricks, he is going to be a All-American probably if he stays, he'll stay to his junior year, but he's really good. I thought the loss of Addison really hurt them in a lot of ways. It didn't look like it hurt him as much because you had Michael Jackson, the third, came in and made what looked like the winning touchdown. And good for Michael. Michael gave up his jersey number for Caleb. And it was nice to see that during the game, when after that touchdown, Caleb was really calling his name out, literally out of his mouth. So that was cool. I think that Addison in space is just such a threat. But I thought it did have an impact on the game in the latter part of it. But the loss of Addison isn't the reason they lost. They gave up 42 points. You don't win many football games giving up 42 points. You score a lot of wins if you score over 40 points, and they scored over 40 points. So I think it was 43 points the defense gave up.
Yeah. Marc, play of the game.
For me, it's an easy one. USC is leading 14-0. Defense is facing a 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 8, whatever it was. The roughing the passer penalty they called on Thule that took away the interception from Kalen in the end zone. That changed the flow, the complexion of the game, period. Number one, it was a crappy call. In no universe is that a roughing the quarterback penalty. But again, the fact that Utah scored 1 or 2 plays later changes the game. USC is ready to step on their neck. They're up 14-0. They got the ball back again. That's the play of the game. And that happened in the first quarter. Sorry, you don't like to blame losses on officials, but across the board, everyone will admit that look, I'm done. That's all.
Well, you know what? I just would like to make a point that Marc said. I understand Marc's frustration. That means suppressed anger and psychiatric talk. But
yes,
the reality of it is that play, as bad as it was, and yes, it took a touchdown away, and maybe an interception, certainly in the end zone, was a great play. And at the time, it looked like SC could have stepped on their neck. But because, in my opinion, it happened early in the game, it wasn't an overall effect. SC had plenty of chances to put it away, but they could have, and I'll agree with Marc on this, they could have really stretched and really put pressure. And more importantly to me, they could have shut that crowd up, because once the crowd got into it, that's a big difference. It's a motivator. And SC, look, they had other penalties too. I mean, the kickoff return where Rayleigh Brown had a big return and a hold. You just can't do that. You just can't do it. I think they have 92 yards and penalties, which was
for 93.
Yeah, go ahead, Marc.
No, the larger point is that when you force your defense to have to stay in the field longer, bad things are going to happen. Injuries happen. It happened a second time on the other roughing the passer penalty with Nick Figueroa. You end up with players getting hurt, like an Erik Gentry, because they have to stay on the field for 8, 9, 10 plays longer. So it has an overall cumulative effect when you have outside forces affecting the game, regardless if it's in the first quarter or in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but would you agree that I'm going to go to the overall game, though? Do you think it affected the overall game?
I'm talking, that was the play of the game for me.
Oh, okay.
The two roughing the passer penalties are indefensible, and I think it does when you call that early. I think it puts that in everybody's mind, right? Not only, okay, I need to go after the quarterback differently, but I think the whole mentality changes. You can still win the game, and I thought Lincoln Riley, after the game, he called the officiating poor. We were kind of talking. We were sort of talking in the press box, and I said it sort of in the third quarter. I said, I think Lincoln's going to say this, and I think he's probably going to get fined. And I was still surprised that he said it, but kind of saw it coming. But he did do a good job of sort of back and forth. Like he made sure there was enough sort of pressure on, hey, the officiating, we got to look at this. And then also said, kind of to Greg's point, you still have to win. You still have the plays available on the field to win, and then be able to say, yeah, we won despite the officiating, not we lost because of the officiating. And that's kind of where that goes with those plays. But the Pac-12 probably is going to come out and reprimand Lincoln Riley for criticizing the officiating and try to do it with a straight face. Like,
you can afford it.
But I mean, they're gonna try to do it with a straight face, like they shouldn't be criticized for those two roughing calls, which they absolutely should be, sort of publicly flogged, in the Twitter sphere or whatever. For me though, my plays of the game, I'm gonna stay away from the penalties, which I do think were massive. I thought when USC got the ball in the second quarter, it was kind of their first miss offensively when they didn't pick up the fourth down. They give it back, and the defense rises up, right? They go 3 and out. USC gets it back. Okay, here we go. Caleb sort of escapes on that first play, picks up 17 yards, a great run. And then you hit Jordan Addison, and it's like, here they go, running off. Then they go 3 plays where they go sideways for no yards. They come back the other way, sideways for -1 yard, sideways the other way for -1 yard. And then Caleb takes that huge sack. And then Utah comes back scores a touchdown. Like for me, I know it's a bunch of plays, but those three, that drive where it looks like you're going, looks like the offense is in sync on time, and then you go sideways, backwards, punt, and then that punt was the big return too. For me, that gave Utah all the momentum it needed to sort of stay in the game and keep coming. They scored a few plays later to get to 21-14, and that, in terms of just on the field play between the two teams, I thought that was just a massive sequence. Again, plenty of time later for USC to kind of right the ship and get the win. That's where I'm going to go kind of for my plays of the game there in that one. Third thing, and that's the expectation you had coming in that was met. So what you thought we were going to see and what actually happened in this game. Greg, we'll go with you. Expectation met.
Well, I thought they'd score a lot of points against Utah. UCLA did. And, like I said, they didn't lose because the offense didn't score enough points. I think
Right.
my expectations, I don't want to change the question, but my expectations for the defense did not match my hope. I didn't think they'd give up this amount of points, especially when there's no really fumble turnovers by SC or there's no interceptions, from Caleb Williams. It was a clean spot on that part. But I really thought that, I was just, they couldn't stop them. It didn't seem like they had any answer to it. And, you hate to be in a position on your offense that you feel you have to score every time you get the ball. And that's kind of what I thought the situation ended up being.
Marc, go ahead. Your expectation that was met.
Caleb having the big monster game. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah. For me, yeah, I think offensively, we thought this is not the same Utah defense that we have seen in years past, and USC is going to be able to come in, and if there's any hint of them sort of clicking, they're going to be able to put up a bunch of yards. For me, it was the crowd, right, at Utah. Like USC was going to be up against it. They between the blackout and that was the most people ever at Rice Eccles. Like they packed that place. It was loud. It was crazy. USC, we talked about, had a chance maybe early to get them out of it, but even when it was 14-0 and it looked like things are rolling, the crowd was still there. And boy, at the end, that was an uphill battle that USC had. If they had managed to pull it out, stop the 2-point or score again or something, that would have been an absolutely well-earned win for USC. So yeah, the expectation being a tough atmosphere was there. I thought USC handled it very well. I mean, there were some penalties. The offense is going to say, we shot ourselves in the foot a little bit. But yeah, I think besides USC showing up offensively, that was it was a fun game to watch, fun game to be at. Fourth thing, your surprise, Greg. You hit on yours a little bit. Not sure if you want to double down on that, or if there was a surprise for you from this one.
Well, to be specific, I was surprised the USC secondary gave up over 442 yards. I think that's what I saw passing wise. And I was disappointed and surprised that Utah outscored SC in the second half, 22-14. That's, if you just said they got outscored 22-14, you go, well, they got really dominated. That's not a good stat. And it was just surprising to me that those two factors happened for me.
Marc, your surprise here.
No sacks and only one tackle for loss by this USC defense. I mean, that they weren't able to do what they've been doing all year. And the fact that they didn't make any adjustments in the second half, they had one person to defend all game. I talked about this on my own podcast that I do daily. And the fact that Dalton Kincaid, Erik, that you've gone over his numbers, it's like he was some all-pro Stanford tight end that has burned USC over the years. I just don't understand it. How somebody can be consistently that open all the time.
Yeah, my surprise goes to the second half, right? Well, a couple things. First of all, closing that second quarter that the defense could not make I mean, that's a full drive in 45 seconds where you just need a stop because Utah's getting the ball to start the second half. Close out that half strong. And Greg, you mentioned kind of the second half. That's been a strength for the USC defense, like making the halftime adjustments, figuring something out. And I think both of what you said, that's kind of mine. It all wraps together, right? That you couldn't make adjustments, and that Dalton Kincaid is still making big time plays on the final drive of the game. Like at no point did you completely eliminate him from the Utah offense. And Lincoln Riley said after the game, he tried some different things and changed up coverage and that kind of stuff. But boy, it feels like someone else has got to beat you on that last drive. Like make them change what they've been doing successfully all game. For me, that was the surprise, that the defense, they did get one, right? Big red zone turnover out of a great hit by Erik Gentry, fumble recovery, that they couldn't just kind of scratch one or two more of those big stops that we've seen all year. That for me was a surprise.
Yeah, first game where Thule didn't make one of those plays that you anticipate.
Kept kind of third
They
down.
had one earlier in the game, but we're not going to rehash that again, are we?
Yeah.
One thing, if I could, Erik, let's not forget that this offense of Utah is a good offense.
Yeah.
This is the first time that SC's really faced a good team. Forget about the number 20 ranking or whatever. This is a good team.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the better teams in the Pac-12. And you know what? Utah lost to UCLA. Okay, SC lost at Utah. UCLA could lose at Oregon. A lot has to do with where you're playing, the situation. But these are but you know what? I don't want to. I'll do this in the takeaway. So go right ahead.
Yeah. No, let's just straight back to you. Our fifth thing, wrap it up. Your biggest takeaway from this one.
Okay. Well, before the season, I wrote for the obvious, not so obvious. SC would go 11-1, and the loss would be at Utah. What I didn't expect, what the loss would be as painful in some ways as this one was, as winnable as it was. And that's what makes it painful. The loss is a loss. Look, if SC goes 11-1 like I predicted, and let's take a look. They should win all their games. They get a bye week this next week. What this team proved to me is they've got a culture of winners. Okay. They've got a culture of guys who really took it bad after the game was over. I mean, there was tears in the eyes. You could see it. These guys, it meant something to them. So they get a week off and a bye week. They can get their act together. They can correct a lot of the mistakes. Maybe they'll figure out, how to stop a tight end. They'll have 2 weeks to figure it out. The fact that, that look at Notre Dame losing to Stanford in South Bend. Well, that tells me that that's a very winnable game at the Coliseum. They could end up 11-1 if they go into UCLA, which appears, if they don't stub their toes, is going to be the gateway to the Pac-12 championship and perhaps something even greater. So they really only lost a game, as painful as it was. They blew an opportunity, though, to have some padding where they were. But to me, this is exactly where I thought they'd be, 6-1. But it would have been great if they were 7-0. But they showed me a lot, and I think they're going to take the last 5 games and really make a great season out of it.
Marc, your takeaway.
Yeah, I think Greg took a little bit of my thunder, what I was going to talk about. It was this team knew that they probably, and they should have won this game. They scored 42 points. Did the defense not play as well as they should have? Absolutely not. They played poorly. Let's just say it. But to see their emotion coming off the field, Caleb took this loss incredibly hard. I've got video, I got pictures of it. He was emotional. He had the crocodile tears. But when you saw him after the game, talking to the press, which to me was a huge step, you could tell this team's like, all right. And Lincoln Riley said it. This team's got what it takes to win a championship. They have that type of juice. That was my takeaway.
Yeah, I think that's all right. At the beginning of the season, if you had said, hey, USC is going to lose to Utah, you would have said, yeah, of course. And then if you said they're going to lose because Utah gets a 2-point conversion with 40-something seconds left and USC was sort of leading the entire way, I think everybody would have taken that. Now things change, right? Utah lost a couple and you think, okay, they're far more beatable than they were, coming in, but Utah was so geared up for this game. They had, they had their Pac-12 lives on the line and they played like it. And USC still went sort of punch for punch at Rice Eccles, which is not an easy place to play. You could tell Travis Dye after the game, his big thing was like, I've never won here, and I take that personally. Like he wanted to get this win, and it's believable, right? When they talk about, yeah, this is gonna, like, we know how to rebound from this. We're all, already sort of working that, and I think this is gonna kind of push us to a win. This is not a 2021 loss where it's okay, let's line up for another one. This feels, again, you don't know what's going to happen from here, but that 2003 triple overtime loss at Cal that kind of went, sent them on that winning streak, not going to guarantee 34 wins in a row or anything like this from this one. But yeah, the way they fought, the way they talked after, no loss is a good loss, but this certainly was not a bad loss for USC. And I think that's the takeaway, is that you knew a loss was coming. The idea that this team was going to run undefeated and beat everybody, there's flaws, there's warts, right? That defense was going to be problematic at some point. Maybe you didn't think it would be sort of this problematic, but yeah, things were going to pop up. My biggest takeaway is that the initial reaction, I don't know if I know full, like, long-term how they rebound for this, but I feel better about how they are going to kind of regroup and move forward. The next 3 games aren't going to tell us a whole lot, but I do think that they're more ready for UCLA after this one now than maybe they were before.
I think this bye week is coming at the perfect time also.
Hopefully
Totally
physically and emotionally.
Yes. So again, that's our wrap from a frustrating and disappointing 1-point loss for USC at Utah, 43-42 Utes. For Erik McKinney, for Marc Kulkin, for Greg Katz, this is Erik McKinney. Thanks for listening to 5 Things. Thanks for watching WeAreSC.